For years, I didn't realize it, but my trauma was quietly running my life. I kept repeating the same relationships, the same fears, the same loss of myself. This is where I started to look at myself.
9场5币1次。
At that time, I was barely holding on. The pandemic had stolen my sense of what it meant to be alive. The world had stopped, yet I was forced to face myself. Then I encountered a relationship, a so-called twin flame. But in reality, it was a toxic relationship, full of control, one that made me lose myself. It gave me a brave glimmer of hope, as if someone could understand me, complete me. But that light quickly turned into weightlessness, like being pushed off a cliff with nothing to hold on to. My heart was empty. I relied on the outside world, on mysticism, on the fantasy of union, just to have a reason to keep living. I knew clearly, if I didn't pull my attention back to myself, I might not survive. I started learning filmmaking in 2022. Before that, I had been a musical actress, a musician. I had never expected that turning my pain into image would captivate me so intensely. I could spend entire days writing scripts, studying directing, breaking down structure, without fatigue, only clarity. Each time I revised the script, I would cry, not from collapse, but from something inside finally loosening. The part of me that had long been denied presence was returning. In this more creative world, I could take control of my life. No one judged me. No one demanded I be someone else. I fell in love with this feeling, finally standing on my own side. On the surface, the film is a story set in the future, where robots replace humans. But in truth, it's a story about breaking cycles. The robots are a metaphor for autonomy. Handing your choices and power over to a robot is like giving your autonomy to anyone else. Every character is real, including the perfect robot, inspired by the version of me that had lost herself, chasing external validation, chasing perfection. Every person in trauma, longing to be seen, longing to be perfect, can find a reflection in this character. Writing the script forced me into brutal honesty. Why do I keep people pleasing? Why am I always afraid of loss? Why do I carry responsibilities that aren't mine? It was also during the process that I first truly saw. I come from a narcissistic family, where I had to read every nuance, suppress myself just to survive. It's not a single event. It's a structure I carried for over 30 years. I finally understood why even as an adult, I was still drawn to toxic relationships. Why, even knowing the pain, I had to cloak it in a layer of spirituality. I began to view my life differently, as observational filmmaking. Not to beautify, not to accuse, but to step back and stand behind the camera. I no longer asked, why me again? Instead, I asked, why does this character always end up in the same fate? What signals came before each collapse? Which emotions were just old scripts running automatically? By observing continuously, I saw clearly which relationships no longer deserve my energy, which arenas never belonged to me, and which reactions were simply old patterns running on autopilot. This is why I had to make this film, not to heal, not to explain myself, but to see my life clearly, so my trauma would no longer run it.